Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So welcome everyone. We're doing our daily study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we are on the 11th canto, chapter 3, and today is text number 36. Naitad mano vishatit vad utak chakshur atma pranendriya chayatala yata analam artisha swaha shabdo pibodaka nishedatate atmamulam artokta ahayat rite nadisheda siddhi. Okay. Translation. Neither the mind nor the faculties of speech, sight, intelligence, the life air, or any of the senses are capable of penetrating that supreme truth, any more than small sparks can affect the original fire from which it's generated. Since the Vedas themselves disclaim the possibility that the truth can be expressed by words, but through indirect reference, the Vedic sound does serve as evidence of the supreme truth, since without the existence of the supreme truth, the various restrictions found in the Vedas would have no ultimate purpose. So how can we understand Krishna? We can't use our mind, speech, sight, intelligence, life air, or any of the senses. So let's read it again. Neither the mind nor the faculties of speech, sight, intelligence, life airs, or any of the senses are capable of penetrating that supreme truth, any more than small sparks can affect the original fire from which they are generated. Not even the authoritative language of the Vedas can perfectly describe the supreme truth, since the Vedas themselves disclaim the possibility that the truth can be expressed by words. But through indirect reference, the Vedic sound does serve as evidence of the supreme truth, since without the existence of that supreme truth, the various restrictions found in the Vedas would have no ultimate purpose. Now we're going to read the purport, but before we get to that, this is actually very similar to a verse that we previously spoke on. It's called the Brahma Upanishad. Brahma Upanishad. It was actually originally, in the Bhagavatam, it's Parikshit asked Sukadeva Goswami, but it was actually previously asked by Narada to Narayan Rishi, and then they reply. So Parikshit says to Sukadeva Goswami a question, and then he says, well, Narada asked this question, so he says that question and that discussion, but then that question and discussion was already asked previously by on Janaloka by Sanaka to Sanandana. So it's just 3 times this question has come up, and it is one verse followed by one verse answer, but actually leads into the entire largest chapter that we have in the Krishna book, perhaps the largest chapter in the Bhagavatam, which is 10th canto, chapter 87. So a very important question. So the verse is Brahmanirdeshe Nirgune Gunavritaya Katam Charanti Shutaya Sakshad Sarasatapare. So, Brahmana, how can the Vedas directly describe the supreme truth, who cannot be described by words? The Vedas are limited to describing qualities, gunas, things. If you're speaking words, you have a subject and you have a predicate. To speak about anything, you have to have. You can't just speak about um, an amorphous Brahman that has no qualities. Um, so when you speak about something about that has qualities, but then the Vedas describe the Lord is nirguna, without material qualities, so that this question comes up. The Vedas are limited to describing the qualities of material nature, but the Supreme is devoid of these qualities, being transcendental to all material manifestation and their causes. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Katachana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Shukaram Smaret Vismite Viparitam Shat Shri Chaitanya Namamitam. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks this question: Evam satata yukta ye bhaktastam parupasate ye chapi aksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vitama. Who is better situated in their spiritual path? Yoga vitama. Those who worship you with devotion, your personal form, are those who worship the avyakta, rupina. Um, Previously, we had it was inspired by the Toronto Temple. The Toronto Temple has had a blog, and they actually came out with a nice uh, April Fool's post. And so they first April Fool's post is that they announced that as an environmental initiative, they're going to get rid of all the toilet paper at the temple. and and then they they wrote this whole long thing, and then they said Happy April Fools. And then the next year they did one where they had a picture of a monkey, and they said, come for Ram Navami, and you can meet the temple's new pet monkey. And so the Dallas temple, I also started putting April Fool's blog posts. We had one where we had pictures of these pygmy goats, and we said that the temple, in order to kind of warm the hearts of the public, and that they will come and perhaps experience the joy of kirtan, we're starting a little pygmy goat petting farm, and we named the different goats, and we had like all the kind of pictures of you know giving the characters in the pictures like different devotional names, so the person might think it's real. But then the last one was um we did one where they said the statue of Nirgun Brahman, the impersonal God, was stolen from the temple, and we don't know like how we feel about it. We don't know how to find it. We don't know what it looks like. Um, and so, and yeah, Arupina Dasi and Avyakta, we had all kinds of impersonal names in the blog posts. So how can we understand? Um, how can we understand something that has no identifiable material qualities? Um, so in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, so he continues, Evam satata yuktaye bhaktastam paripasate chapyaksh avyaktam tesham keva maive shamano ye mam nitya yukta pasate sharaya pariopetas te me yukta mo mata. He says the devotees are best situated, and then he says, Ye twaksharamanirdeshtam avyaktam parupasate sarvataragama chinchacha kutashtam achaladarum sanyandriya gramam sarvatra samabudaya te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuteyate klesha dikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hirgatir dukam dehavadvir avapyate. So he says, both can achieve me, but the one who is in the impersonal path, it's full of klesha. Klesha means misery. It's full of trouble. And he ends it with this verse. He says, um, a person who has a body, if you're not in outside of this material reality, if you're an embodied being, how can you conceive of or perceive of something that is not of this world? Like, close your eyes and think of the impersonal Brahman. What comes to mind? Anything? Maybe you see like a white light, yellow light. But there, you're putting qualities there. You're putting qualities there. So as soon as you put some material qualities, then then that's not the impersonal Brahman. Uh, so it says for anyone who's embodied, it's almost impossible to develop what is called the non-perceptual feelings, as Prabhupada says. And thus, and also the material world is designed to keep us in the material consciousness. So it's uh, um, we're working against Durga, and we have our two arms, and we're trying to resist the strength of her. And she has 10 arms, 20 arms, 80 arms, thousands of arms, and we're trying to resist that. So uh, practically impossible. So he says, full of misery, very, very impossible. And so in the verse, that's the first verse of the Brahma Upanishad, is verse 1 and 2 of the 87th chapter. And the answer that's given, and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, when speaking on the answer, he says, well, this seems like a very odd answer. It's like someone saying, where are you going today? And you answer, I like sweet rice, and I had sweet rice. You might be like, wait, what does it have to do with the answer? So this is the answer. Burindriya mana pranan jananam ashijat prabhu matra artham cha bhavartham cha atmane kalpaya cha. The Supreme Lord manifests the material intelligence, senses, mind, and vital airs of the living entity so that they can indulge in their desires for sense gratification, take repeated births, and to engage in fruitive activities, and become elevated in future lives, and ultimately attain liberation. So actually, the material mind, intelligence, senses, all these things are given to keep us in illusion, but they're also Krishna's energies. They can also be used in to liberate us. I think it was Sridhar Maharaj. He wrote this article, and he asked, "How can we know Krishna?" And he gave different things. First, well, maybe the Vedas, the scripture. And we find, like, there's some limitation there. We find, limitation here. Of course, we're not giving up the Vedas or scripture, but alone can we find Krishna or God just through scripture? There's some difficulty there. And then he said, the next one, he said, perhaps maybe the Dham. And, many people go to the Dham and not, they have some experience, but maybe not actually achieving the correct or highest realization. The deity, same thing. And then he concludes, it's the devotee. One devotee honor is, he said, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I honor Srila Prabhupada because Prabhupada is the one who came to the uh, smelly Bowery. I now Bhakti Center, and Second Avenue. It doesn't smell bad like it did in the 60s and 70s. It was even in the 80s. It was it smelled like alcohol and urine. It was not a nice place. But Prabhupada is the one who came down there. So it's through the actual mercy of the devotee, one can understand Krishna. So let's read the purport. It's a long purport. The small sparks generated. So yeah, the sunlight. Just imagine the ray of the ray of the sun. Can that burn the sun? No, can't burn the sun. The small sparks generating from a blazing fire have no power to illuminate the original fire, nor can they burn it. The quantity of heat and light in the original fire is always superior to the quantity found in the insignificant sparks. Similarly, the minute living entity is generated from the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra Jamad Asya Yataha and Bhagavad Gita Ham Sarvasya Prabhavo Maiva and Maivam Shojivaloke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. The minute living entities being angsha, or sparks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can never equal the Supreme Godhead in their quantity of potency. The quantity of knowledge and bliss of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always superior. Therefore, when a foolish conditioned soul tries to eliminate the subject matter of the highest truth with his tiny brain, he merely illuminates his own foolishness. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has personally spoken in the Bhagavad Gita which is the blazing fire of perfect knowledge that burns to ashes the insignificant speculations and theories of the so-called philosophers and scientists regarding the ultimate truth. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Hrishikesha, the Lord of everyone's senses. And because the personality of Godhead has the supreme seeing power, hearing power, touching power, smelling power, and tasting power, the living entities in a limited sense can also see, hear, touch, taste, and smell by the mercy of Hrishikesha. That these ideas expressed in the Brihad Aranika Upanishad, Pranasya Pranamuta Chakshusha Chakshulta Shrotasya Shrotyam Anasyam Manaso Ye Mano Viduhu. The Supreme Truth is understood to be the life air sustaining everyone's life, the vision of everyone's eyes, the hearing power of the ear, and the sustenance of food itself. The obvious conclusion is that the Supreme Truth can be known only by His causeless mercy, not by our foolish attempts to bring the all-pervading truth within the insignificant boundaries of our intelligence. It is stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. The descriptive power of speech fails in the realms fails in the realm of the Supreme Truth, and the speculative power of the mind cannot achieve him. This is why in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita it is described that humility and bhakti are synonymous. We can't approach Krishna, we can't know Krishna without his mercy and without having that humble mood. The humility is, as it said in the German statement, Dummheit und Stolz wachsen half dem selben Holz. Pride and stupidity grow on the same tree. We become ignorant the more we are proud. And so we cannot understand without mercy. We can study, but we actually need the prasad, the mercy. Prasade sarvadukanam. And when we get that mercy, all the miseries go away. Hanir asyo pajayate, prasano chetaso yaso, buddhiratisate. And our intelligence becomes clear when we get mercy. But because the such statements containing the purport of the Vedic Shrutis are themselves descriptions of the absolute truth, one may consider such Vedic statements contradictory. Therefore, it is stated in this connection, Shabdo pi bodhaka nishedatma mulam artokam aha. Although the Vedic Shruti, Shabda, forbids us to speculate on the absolute truth, such injunctions indirectly constitute positive assertions of the existence of the supreme living entity. If we say the sky is not green, then it means the sky might be something else. It doesn't mean that the sky doesn't exist. So, in the effort to understand the first stage of realization of the what is called avyagyan, the non-dual substance, the Brahman Paramatmi Bhagavaniti, the supreme truth, the absolute truth. The first stage of realization is the impersonal aspect. And an effort to understand that, they define it always in the negative, as it says here in the word nishedha. Nisheda is like vidhi nisheda. Vidhi are like the positive things, and nisheda are the negatives. Or sometimes these are used in the sense of like yama niyama. Yama is like the don'ts, and niyamas are the do's. But here it's like negative statements, nisheda. So the Vedas say all these negative statements. The Lord is not material. The Lord doesn't have material qualities. The Lord does not have veins. The Lord does not have mucus. The Lord doesn't have all these material things. And so in this way, they say it's not erasing, but it's actually erasing the material conceptions. So it says here, such restrictive injunctions or such negative statements indirectly constitute positive assertions. In fact, the Vedic restrictions are meant to save one from the false path of mental speculation and ultimately bring one to the point of devotional surrender. Therefore, you have famous verse of Bhagavad Gita. What is this? Bahunam Janmanam Ante. After many, many births, Jnanavan. Many births of this kind of trying to understand through this path of negation, Mam prapadyante. One that actually surrenders just unto me, and such a soul is very rare. As the Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedasya sarveraham vedyo. By the Vedic literatures, the Supreme Personality of God is to be known. So, here the Vedas are saying you can't understand God through words, but then they're saying the Vedas are meant to reveal the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it seems almost contradictory. The assertion that a particular process, such as mental speculation, is useless. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha constitute an indirect assertion of existence of a correct path of achieving the Supreme. As Srila Sridhar Swami says stated, Sarvasya nishedasya savaditavat. Every negative injunction is understood to have a specific limit. So if you're dealing with just, he's not this, he's not that, he's not this, then it can only reveal so much. It can only give such a limited form of realization. Negative junctions cannot be taken as applicable in all cases. Also, they're not absolute. For example, a negative injunction is that no living entity is equal or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, clearly states that because of the intense love of the residents of Vrindavan for Krishna, they sometimes assume a superior position. Krishna, you're the loser, and you're going to carry me on your back. This is goes on in different games. Or Krishna is at the feet of Radharani. He's at the feet of the gopis. So he's taking. Sometimes they assume a superior position. Thus, Madhya Yashoda binds Krishna with ropes. There are influential cowherd boys that sometimes ride on the shoulders of Krishna or defeat him in wrestling. Negative injunctions, therefore, may sometimes be adjusted according to the transcendental situation. Although the absolute truth is transcendental to the material creation and therefore beyond the scope of material senses, when those same material senses are saturated with love of Godhead, they become spiritualized and empowered to perceive the absolute truth. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, what's going to come up? What's the verse? What is this leading to? Love potion, number 9. You rub this on the eyes. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena. Santas sadaiva hridayesha vilokayanti. Yam shama sundaram achincha gunaswarupam. Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord, Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Shamasundar within the heart of the devotee. And then another, continuing the purport, in the Bhagavad Gita 8:11:8, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, Natumam shakshaye drashtum anyaiva swachakshusha divyam dadami te chakshush pasha me yogamaishwaram. But you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes by which you can hold my mystic opulence. Actually, I believe it is either Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur or Baladev Vidyabhushan in their commentary. They describe, I think it's probably Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, in this verse, that actually Arjuna's eyes are being downgraded. He's seeing Krishna face to face as his best friend. Now he's got to be downgraded to the eyes of the demigods, see his universal form. But he's saying still, their point in the purport stands that you cannot see me without me providing that mercy. So similarly, in the Srimad Bhagavatam describes many incidences where the Supreme Absolute Truth revealed himself to his devotee, as in the histories of Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Priti Maharaj, Kardama Muni, Pandavas, and the Gopis. Therefore, the Vedic assertions that the Absolute Truth is beyond the power of the eyes refer to those who have not received transcendental eyes by the mercy of the personality of Godhead. But the Lord's own transcendental senses, which are the source of our limited senses, are confirmed in the Shruti, as in the following statement, Kena Upanishad. Yad vachana abhyuditam yena vag abhyudhyate tat eva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yatat idam upasate. Quote, Brahman, the absolute, should be understood to be that which cannot be ascertained by the material power of speech. Speech itself is evinced by that supreme truth. What is? Let's look up. Does anybody know what that word is? Evinced. What is the? Who knows? To reveal the presence of a quality or feeling. So speech itself is revealed by that supreme truth. So speech comes from Krishna. By the statement Yena Vag Abhyudhyate, our power of speech is expressed by the absolute truth. It is clearly expressed. The absolute truth has his own transcendental senses. Therefore, he is called Rishikesha. So the impersonal approach would say that the Lord doesn't have senses. The soul doesn't have senses. Nothing. All these are add-ons. In effort to kind of dignify or the the absolute truth, they try to disconnect the supreme absolute truth's connection with matter. So matter has qualities, so the absolute truth must be better. It has no qualities. The Bhaktivedanta rather, instead of negating, you don't say, okay, this person, okay, he's missing an arm, and he's missing an eye, and he's missing a leg. It's actually kind of unfortunate. So the Bhaktivedanta approach is to understand the dignity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not to remove qualities, but rather add all the qualities to their utmost, fullest extent. So he has senses. Even the soul has senses. Just like Prabhupada is giving the example that why does have a glove? Why does a jacket have arms? Why have a glove has fingers? So why does the subtle body have senses? Why does the physical body have sense organs? It's because underneath the soul also has senses. Srila Narada Muni has stated, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. Our senses cannot approach the supreme absolute truth by their own power, but when engaged in loving devotional service to satisfy the Lord of the senses, our limited senses must become connected to the Lord's unlimited senses, and thus by the Lord's mercy he can be understood. This is one point we have in the second canto 10 chapter verse 8 and 9. Krishna, not Krishna, but it's describing very interesting concept. It describes that there are three Purushas. These are three kind of supportive bodies. You have what is called the Adi Bhautika Purush, the physical body with organs with ears, eyes, and nose. You have what is Adi Atmaka Purush, the soul who inhabits the body, and Adi Devaka Purush. These are the demigods that facilitate the perceptions that we perceive through the body. So it's just like I'm looking at, I'm participating in this class using my phone, and my role of being a teacher in this class only works because there's a phone and then there's internet. So similarly, a demigod's role only has significance if there's a person with a body. Um, there's this interdependency that is there. So a person can watch a TV, and the TV has the internet. It has its own physical form, and then there's the watcher. So you have the Atma as the watcher. The TV represents the physical form, and the internet represents the demigods that facilitate the connection. And so verse 8 describes this interdependency. And then the verse 9 talks about Swa Ashraya Ashrayaha. But then there's that one who's the shelter for all shelters. There's the one who is the support of those supports, the one who sees without assistance. For us to see, we could be in a material body and not see anything without the demigod's help. If the sun lights off, then there's no sight. Or even just the senses, they're actually the Lord. They control the senses. They actually facilitate sense perception. And so we could be in a body, we won't see anything. or the demigod without a human in a body to see something, then he is not the Lord of sight. Or without a body, then also the same thing. So all three have this interdependency. But Krishna is the one who is fully independent. He is the independent seer. So continuing the purport, as I said, we have an extensive purport. Srila Madhvacharya has quoted the following statement from the Brahmatarka: Anando nedrishananda iti ukte lokataparam pratibhati nachabhati yatava darshanam vina. The transcendental bliss of the Absolute Truth cannot be compared to the ordinary happiness of the material world. Similarly, in the Vedanta Sutra, the Absolute Truth is described as Anandamaya, or full of bliss. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in this verse, Sri Pipalayana is more or less describing the impersonal feature of the Absolute Truth. Actually, I believe it is Jiva Goswami in his commentary on those two verses, the Brahma Upanishad, verse 1 and 2 of chapter 87. He says, how can you describe the Absolute Truth with words? He said, well, if you're dealing with the impersonal, then you can't. Because the whole idea is the impersonal has no qualities, and as soon as you bring up words, subject and predicate, words only work with a kind of dualistic conception. You have to have subject and predicate to convey an idea. Actually, if you find this is Madhvacharya's critique of Shankaracharya's interpretation of Vedanta and in the Vedas, you have what are the different forms of grammar. You have what is called mukhya vritti, mukhya, the face, the word on its face. That comes in two forms. You have rudha and yoga. So rudha means where the root of the word just means the word, like go means cow. And then yoga, the word yoga you might know means add or connecting. So when there's two things connecting and they make up a word, like pach means to cook, pachaka means the one who cooks, a chef. So that's mukhya, a word on its face. And then you have what is called lakshana. Lakshana means where if the word on its face in its how it's used in the sentence doesn't make sense, then you use the second or third form, which is called lakshana, and the third form is called gona. So lakshana means where there's some a secondary use, like gangaya Basham. Gangayam Basham means the river on the statement in its on its face is the village, the city in the river. And if you're reading that in a story, it just doesn't make sense. The lakshana or the secondary use of those terms means, oh, it's a city on the banks of the river. It's not the city in the river. And then the third one is gona. Um, Gona means guna has qualities similar to. So you see the example is Deva Datta Simha. Deva Datta is a lion, but it actually means this great hero. He's very lion-like. He's not literally a lion. So in the Vedas, you have statements about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that God is a person. And when it comes to the impersonal aspects, Shankaracharya's presentation is very, clear and straightforward. But when it brings up those personal aspects, then what he does is he uses a second or third form of the words. And according to the rules of grammar, you only go through those second or third forms if the first one doesn't make sense. If you have a statement that's very clear, then you don't negate it or avoid it for some. And then also the secondary form has to relate to the first form. For example, Gangaya Basham, the village on the banks of the Ganges. You can't just say the village is the heart and the Ganges is the emotions and the flow between the emotions and the heart. It has to relate to the original statement. And so oftentimes the program was to avoid the original statements, even though the original statements are clear. And that way, he doesn't have to reveal the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because that was not Shankaracharya's mission. That was to come later with Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya. And Please excuse me to continue the purport. The 9 Yogendras are themselves devotees of the of the personal feature of the Lord. So King Nimi asked the question, his question about the different features of the Absolute Truth to clarify that the Supreme Personality of God is the source of all variegated aspects of the Advaya Jnana, or transcendental reality. This is also expressed. Advaya Jnana means non-dual, non-dual knowledge means. This is also expressed in the following statement in Shruti. Tam tvanupashadam purusham prachami. I'm inquiring about that Purusha, that Supreme Person who is revealed in the Upanishads. If the Absolute Truth was actually inaccessible by words, there'll be no meaning in the Vedic literature. So, as I was mentioning, I think it was Jiva Goswami, he says in those commentary in those 2 verses, he says, yeah, when you're dealing with Brahman, then, yeah, you really can't. But when you're dealing with Krishna, yes, words become appropriate because Krishna empowers the words and he gives his mercy within them, which is consistent of the collection of transcendental words. Since the Vedic descriptions of the truth are to be taken as infallible, it's impossible to maintain that the power of speech is in all cases unable to describe the truth. After all, the Vedic mantras themselves are meant to be spoken and heard. Therefore, the injunction that neither the mind nor speech can approach the absolute truth, naitan mano vishati vag uta, cannot be taken as an applicable in all cases. Rather, it is a warning to those who foolishly try to encompass the absolute truth by their puny speculative powers. Since the Vedic injunctions are either positive or negative, are to be taken as a realistic description of the absolute truth, the process of hearing and repeating the Vedic knowledge of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu can be understood as a separate process which one's hearing and speaking power becomes spiritualized by the submissive reception of transcendental knowledge. This process depends on one's faith on a bona fide spiritual master, who's a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it is stated, Yasya Devi Paradi Bhaktir, Yata Devi Tataguru, Tasyaita Kahita Yarta, Prakashante Mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. And as stated by the Lord himself in the Harivamsha, Tat Param Paramam Brahma, Sarvam Bhajate Jagat, Mamaiva Tad Ghanam Tejo, Yatam Arhasi Bharata. That supreme truth, Brahman, expands itself into the variegatedness of this universe. You should know it to be my own concentrated effulgence, O Bharata. The word Gatum Arhasi, you must know it, spoken by the Lord himself, indicates the absolute truth is to be known, but one must surrender the truth rather than waste time in foolish speculation. Oh my God. So we're going to stop here and see if the people in the temple room would like to share, because the, the purport is not over. So yes, let's stop here and ask everyone to share before darshan. There's another maybe 5-10 minutes, 5 minutes of before the purport's finished.
Thank you, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. If our sampradaya ever gets challenged by the impersonalists, we will send you to refute their arguments. You can do that out of your car easily. I see Bhima Prabhuini's avatar.
Oops. I would say that it's better just to punch impersonalists in the nose and then say that was personal. That will solve the argument right there.
I saw this little comic. It was my son was for school, and it was Marx and Nietzsche or somebody, and someone was saying like nothing's real, and then the other person like threw a rock at the person's head in the comic, and he said, "Ow!" He said, "It's not real. It's not real." I just
I,
read
rem-
saw it
I
yesterday.
remember Prabhupada in several of his purports. Actually, Prabhu, you probably have them memorized, or at least know to where this is taken from. But Prabhupada was always just very blatant in his calling out of fools, the foolishness of impersonalism when everything is so self-apparent, whether it be a rock upside the head or just the beauty of nature and the variegatedness of everything, including emotions, etc. So it's all right there, and for the writing is on the wall that Krishna or that God is personal, supra personal. What do they say at the Bhakti Center? Radical personalism. It's just, I think there was maybe Prabhu, you know this. There was a undeniable argument. Jeez, if I could remember it, about the folly of impersonalism. It was just a statement. But anyways, I can't remember it. Maybe I'll remember it in a few moments. But uh, oh yeah, something about the impersonalists being afraid of life, or that they have some trauma that has happened to them, lost love, abuse, or something like that. So the uh, the only way to handle that is to deny its existence, to suppress, you know, um, the existence of this type of connection, because somewhere in their lives, especially if they were children, that relationship, that personal relationship, was broken or taken from them, and so therefore, in order to get through it, they have to. It wouldn't be sublimate. They have to suppress the enjoyment or the recognition of um, God as person, because they've been so disappointed by the personal relationships they have in their life. Hare Krishna.
I just want to share a message from Radhi Kraman. Yes, definitely foolish because pride, not having humility is foolish. But at the same time, we don't want to underestimate the fierce and overwhelming intelligence and presentation of Shankaracharya. That's one of the mistakes. If you're going into, Bhima's going to go, and bring up his boxing and practice some boxing, and then he goes against some like Mike Tyson or some great challenger. If you underestimate the challenge, then you're in a great danger. And so we want to make sure not to uh, make a caricature of the it's Shankaracharya's Lord Shiva. So his presentations are so overwhelmingly intelligent and powerful that every single Vaishnavacharya has had the need to challenge, to present some kind of refutation of what's presented there because he's so powerful. And we have the conch blowing right now. Hare Krishna.
जय राधा मुरलीधर भगवान
Jai Shri Radha Murida Gaura Chandra Samavaivan. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Those feet of us fertilize and that for the only way which we can continue to give devotional service. About His grace. Lord's feet treat all our thanks. By His grace from across the ocean to us. Attain the mercy of Krishna. I only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from His lotus mouth. Dive into those feet of perfection that fulfills all His.
Hare Krishna, welcome to the Afterglow. Nityananda Chandra Prabhu, are you available for a few minutes to stay over time? Thank you. Dear devotees, it's time for you to share your takeaways, realizations, ask questions, glorify Nityananda Chandra Prabhu and Sampradaya. Go ahead, take advantage. Okay, Nityananda Chandra.
I could finish the purport if you like.
Yeah.
Okay. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, actually no, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has pointed out that according to the authorized statements of Vedic literature, the Lord's transcendental form is understood to be Brahmamaya, or completely spiritual, no trace of material contamination. Therefore, in such statements as Nilotpala Dalam Shamam, the Lord's form is beautifully manifest the hue of dark blue lotus petals. Is understood that a transcendental dark blue is being described. Still, the Lord is just inconceivably merciful to his devotees, even those on the neophyte platform who are trying to come to the state of love of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord gradually purifies the senses of a conditioned soul who is trying to understand him, and eventually the Lord appears before such a rectified servitor. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Prakati Nilotpala Varnatvena Bhaktir Jatam Atadrishamapi. In the beginning, being conditioned by previously materialistic activities, a devotee's meditating on the Lord's transcendental form may base his meditation on experience of material forms and colors within this world. The Lord's transcendental form has nothing to do with material forms and colors, but since the object of his meditation is Krishna, such meditation will eventually be transformed into a transcendental experience of the actual form, colors, activities, pastimes, entourage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, transcendental knowledge depends not on material logic, but on the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If the Lord is pleased by his devotees' sincere attempt to understand him, the Lord can immediately circumvent all the so-called technicalities of material logic and Vedic injunctions and reveal himself to his pure devotee. Unless one accepts the omnipotency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's no hope in approaching the Absolute Truth. Therefore, now this is from 11:336. This is the purport for the class. Therefore is stated in the Katha Upanishad, Drishyate Twaragraya Bhujya. This absolute truth is seen by transcendental intelligence. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has pointed out that knowledge acquired through the material senses with the modes of nature is merely hypothetical and not factual. Empirical knowledge deals with our ephemeral experience of sense objects generated by material nature. For example, there are many wars currently going on because of a false conception of nationalism. Similarly, there's conflict throughout the world, and great leaders fight like cats and dogs for economic development of their countries. Thus, material language is used to designate temporary objects perceived by the eyes, nose, tongue, touch, and taste. This type of language and experience is useless for approaching the absolute truth. But the transcendental sound from the spiritual sky has a completely different effect. We should not foolishly try to use material concocted language to include the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an object of the material world. The Supreme Lord is completely transcendental, known as Atma Prakasha, or self-manifested, as stated in the Padma Purana. Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Na Bhavet Grayaminjayi Seva Mukhe Hi Jivado Swayam Eva Spratyada. Material senses cannot appreciate the holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes. But when a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and tastes the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified and gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. If one surrenders to the Supreme Lord, taking shelter at his lotus feet, one's spiritualized senses gradually becomes empowered to perceive the Lord. Mere empiricism and material logic have limited jurisdiction within the external energy of the Supreme Lord and cannot apply to those things which are eternal. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has quoted the following verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nashammatis tavu ukraman grim, sprishati narto pagamu yatada artha, mahishyasam pado rajo bhikshekam, nikinshananam na virnitayadvat. Unless they smear upon the bodies the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined towards materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord can one be freed from material contamination. And last paragraph, thank you for sticking around. Although Sri Pipalai is expressed that the absolute truth cannot be approached by material senses, the sage himself is describing the absolute truth with transcendental senses. And the king is able to understand the transcendental sound because he is surrendered to the lotus feet of pure devotees, the Navayogendras. Therefore, one should not foolishly try to understand this verse out of context in an impersonal way, but one should follow the example of King Nimi, who is trying to understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ultimately the source of everything. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. Any questions after the purport, dear devotees?
Yeah, I was wondering if
Flying
Nityananda,
from Jamunajaya. Thank you, Jamunajaya. We caught it. Bhima?
I was just wondering where Nityananda Chandra knew the pharmacy where you can get that love potion number 9.
Bhakti Center, 3rd floor.
There you go, Bo.
What's the price? Everything you have?
Greed.
Yeah, agreed.
I have a question, if I may,
Yes.
Prabhus.
Anupam Prabhu.
So, in the purport, it said that the materialist can't get out of his current situation unless he smears his body with the dust of the pure devotee. So, what does that mean exactly? We hear it all the time. You need the dust of the feet, the dust of the feet.
Oh.
But I'm assuming it doesn't mean actual dust. It means something different. Could you explain that a bit more?
It means you have to go to New Jersey, find Anupam's apartment, and just roll all over the place. Get in there,
You get a
roll.
lot of cat hair on you if you did
Cat
that.
hair. There you get cat hair too. You might have some allergies. You might face might puff up, but you'll get some. Service. The mood of service. Serve the desire of the devotees, and we see that Lord Chaitanya has his desire, and that's been transmitted through his lineage, and so we want to serve that desire. Serve the desire of Srila Prabhupada, serve the desire of Vaisheshika Prabhu.
Nice. So putting ourselves beneath them in a sense, getting to the feet and developing that attitude of that humble servant. I'm the shoe shiner. I'm the foot massager of this person and accepting service.
In the mode of ignorance, we feel ourselves the boss. We're a Lord. Ishvaraham aham bhogi, siddhaham balavansuki. In the mode of passion, we're the connoisseur. I know how to enjoy this life. I know how to get the juice out of everything. In the mode of goodness, we're the savior. I'm the prophet. But in the mode of Sudasattva, we're the servant.
Nice.
Cool.
Thank you. That's good.
Satisfied to be the servant of the servant of the servant. Nice. Okay. Thank you very much, Nityananda Chandra Prabhu. Isaiah, Annabelle, Sage, and Sky, please unmute yourselves, turn on your cameras, and share.
I'm already muted.
Mute that.
Should we do it on this?
I'm gonna turn it.
Annabelle, Sage, and Sky.
Mama, are we doing it on this? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you so much. Interpretation team. Nitai Chant will present all the philosophical arguments. Bhima Prabhu will punch them in the face. And Sage, Sky, Isaiah, and Annabelle will chant Hare Krishna to dissipate any residual doubt that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that Srila Prabhupada is the Acharya, and we are the servants in the lineage. Thank you very much, dear devotees. We love you. We need you. Come again tomorrow. Have a
Paw
wonderful
Patrol Choir.
Paw Patrol Choir. Yeah, we're Srila Prabhupada's dogs, Japa dogs. Okay, Hare Krishna.